Hello and welcome to the Real Talk USA, an online debate show where nothing is scripted. While our purpose is to entertain, educate, and empower our generation, it's a safe place for each and every person to voice their beliefs and opinions. We discuss topics such as relationships, social issues, religion, and education. Everybody, welcome to the first episode of the Real Talk USA. I'm your host, Mehdi, and today we'll be talking about a very important topic, police brutality, the injustice in this country, and just Black Lives Matter. Alright, and today I am with Kevin, I have Vinny, I have PJ, and I have AD. And guys, are y'all ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Already.
So let's get started. First question of this topic is, what is the disconnect between white people understanding Black issues?
I want to take that one first.
You said something first, you should take it.
I don't know. For me, the biggest disconnect is that they were raised up differently than we did. They really haven't experienced the racism that Black people experienced for 400 years, especially here in America. And some of them just can't connect with that, especially all the white people. Now, the youngest one now is also something that I can appreciate what's going on right now with this new generation. They kind of get in the picture, at least most of them now. The biggest disconnect for me is just that all the white people like the way the system worked for them, because it was built just for them. It wasn't built for us Black people. I know this might sound a little controversial. It wasn't built for us Black people. So they want to stick to what they know because it worked for them, and they're afraid of change. For some people, change is really scary, and I feel like for most of them, that's what it is. They're completely afraid to change the system, so that way they think they might lose their position in society, and it's just, I don't know. It's frightening to them. But as long as they understand that this country is supposed to be we're all supposed to be equal.
Right.
It's something that it's not going to be easy for them to register. It's going to take a generational fight with the young folks coming up, and of course it might take some education with the young kids growing up. Also educating the parents, not only young folks educating young folks. Young kids got to educate the parents. The change is absolutely necessary. The old ways is not only the right way. So that's just my point of view on that.
All right, I'll take that. I think it's a thing of connection. If you don't relate to what happened, what's going on to the other people, or the other person, you don't really you can't relate to their story. So why would I change that? It's kind of like my life. I was born with a silver spoon, so I don't want anything to change. Yes, we're friends, but your struggle doesn't relate to me at all. When I go home, I'm fine. So I feel like living in a bubble is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
They've raised that way, being in that bubble, and now when things start to go out, it's like their reaction is kind of like, dang, this is actually going on in the world. Yeah, step out of the bubble, you're going to see how the other side live. So I feel like that's the biggest disconnect as far as just like being able to relate to each other. They usually try and use sports and entertainment as well for relate to Black people, but that's cool, that's for sure, that's for TV. But when it really matters, that's when it's kind of like, well, I don't have those issues, so I can't relate to what you guys were saying.
Exactly.
That's what I feel the biggest disconnection is.
I mean, just to support what Eddie and Vinny said, is something that everybody, whenever you are born and then you are being taught on the fact of like you got to do certain things, your brain has been already programmed to do stuff like that. Like we can see, like right now, the media is actually showing us the reality. That's only stuff that we can see about the disconnection. But what about what happened probably 300 years from now or ago? You know, because like racism, if we're talking about it right now, hasn't just started now.
Yeah.
We're just advocating about it just at this moment because people are saying enough is enough. Enough has been enough since over 500 years ago. It started with our ancestors because like when a white person decided to actually come and take over some of like the wealth they decided to use violence. So it's not about disconnected. They just came and then they show us what they wanted. They wanted the power, but you know, you can communicate with somebody. You gotta learn. If you are used to something, like I said, it's difficult to be comfortable by being uncomfortable. Like, it's been taught, it's been implemented in the brain, so they go with it. It's now a lifestyle. That's basically one of my biggest point.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're all pretty much in agreement. You know, I feel like experience thing is very important. Like, there's a difference between, like, is it empathy or sympathy? That's the one where it's like, I can relate to you because I have that same experience. Which one of those words is it?
Empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you empathize
Yeah.
with somebody because you share, you know, a common experience with them. I'm gonna use a personal story for me to kind of break it down. Like, when I was in high school, there was one time football practice. It was around the time when I first started doing this protest. I had a lot of teammates who brought that news to my attention. I hadn't heard about it up to that point. And the way they were speaking on it, it definitely they were more saying like, hey, yeah, we don't know what is going on, but he's kneeling for the flag. It was more like they were coming from a place of, we're offended because he's disrespecting the troops and all that. It's like, really? That's weird. He would just do that out of the blue? I go home and I'm like, I gotta figure out what's going on. So I see his interview and he's talking about, hey, like, you know, what's going on in America is there's a disproportionate amount of black people being killed, and there's miseducation and a lot of other stuff in the system that puts us down, and I'm going to take a knee out of, you know, desire to see that change. And that made sense to me right away. There was no, oh, is he trying to, you know, because everybody, we relate to the troops, the flyovers and all that, the military, so I get where that can be offensive, but when he said it out of his mouth, it made immediate sense to me because I've had that experience, you know, in certain ways, so, yeah.
So do you guys think, because now we see more white people trying to relate or kneeling down with us and marching with us and making posts, do you think that comes from a genuinely good place, is like, okay, I'm trying to understand, or do you think they're trying not to look racist? Because I have seen a lot of posts saying that, and I actually reposted it as well. I'm watching the people that are quiet, and after thinking about it, it's like, does that make people speak up just so they don't look racist, or are they really trying to understand what's going on?
For me, I think if you really look deep enough, you will know who's trying to look racist and who's actually speaking out. Those white kids who are out there in downtown marching with black folks, they're real. Most of them are real. They're not trying to look racist. I've been downtown about 3-4 times already protesting with those young kids, and for me it's just genuinely that they feel it. They don't feel guilty of what happened to black people in America, but they feel like it's time for a change. Because they've learned lessons. Back in the 60s, there were white people who also marched with black folks to get civil rights passed and all kind of stuff going on. So they know the history. They know. For me, racism has to be solved by white people. They created that. They have to solve it. And some of them young folks, they just feel like that's their fight. No, seriously. No, seriously. Black people, we can cry all day, all night about Black Lives Matter. As long as white people don't care about it, as long as they're now on our side, we are not going to go anywhere with it. Because they started it, they got to finish the fight.
I got a question. Would you say that you feel that way more because you think, racism started by white people, or you believe because of right now, like there's 5-to-1 ratio, white people to black people. So it's more like they're the mass majority of the population. So if this country is going to change, then the mass majority, is that where it's more coming from, or more it's just like, since they're the ones who started it, they got to be the ones to end it?
Both ways.
Both ways?
Both ways. But the latter one that you say is the main one, because they're the mass in this country. They're the ones with the power. Congress, it's mostly white. Right now, we got a white president. The Supreme Court, most of them are white. I think we only got like 1 black and 2 Latinos in the Supreme Court. Most of the judges, even local judges here, they're white. Governors, all those congressmen, local congressmen, They're all white. Most police officers are white. Even those who police the black neighborhoods, they're white. They're the ones with the power. They have to be on our side for us to make a change. We have to convince them of what they're doing is wrong, or what their parent did, grandparent or something like that is wrong, and they need to join our side. As long as we're fighting against them, we're not going to go anywhere. We have to convince them to be on our side. We have to convince them to recognize the sin first, and then bring them on our side. That's the only way we're going to move forward.
So what happened if you don't recognize that? Then what?
That's what's been happening for about 400 years.
I think, but that's my point. I don't think that's the problem though. I feel like the problem is, I want to use this analogy. It's like a bad relationship, right? Going back to the man, I'm sorry, taking back the man keep cheating, and the woman desperately trying to ask and beg for him to, change his way and take him back. She can solve the problem by walking away, but she don't want to. She's begging for approval from somebody else. Black people, same thing we do. You say 5-to-1 ratio, right? Who's the biggest consumer in this country? We are. So, yes, we can march all day long. We can march for 20 years, all I care. Our money, this is the language they understand. Money and blood. That's it. So you coming to a peaceful marching or whatever, you can look in the history. Peaceful march has never changed anything. And it won't.
Yeah, but that's not the only option.
So you're pro-looting. Hit him
No,
with her.
that's the thing. I'm not talking about looting. We can do it the right way, actually.
Ah.
So this is how. First of all, people need to see, well, before I answer that, can I go back to your initial question?
Okay.
I feel as though most people, whether it's black or white, I feel like at least 50% are doing it for show.
Yes.
To show, hey, look here, I'm out here with the movement,
Yes.
I'm with Black People Matter, Black Lives Matter. They're doing it for show. They're out there taking pictures, thinking it's a joke, but this is like real life stuff. People are dying over this. Now, here's the thing. You want to be unified, right? Why don't you support black businesses? Why don't you support black banks? Why don't you do that? Why don't you take your money away from all these brown and white people and put it in your own neighborhood? I'll use this example. Back in World War II, you see how the Japanese American were treated? Real bad, right?
Yeah.
What happened? They structured. They made their own town. They took their money, put it back in their communities, and now they're well respected.
You got a good point. Black people also started that. I think it was somewhere in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I understand that.
Texas,
The Black
somewhere
Wall
like
Street,
that.
yes.
Black Wall Street.
Yes.
And what happened to it?
It got bombed.
Yeah, exactly.
So just
By
because,
who?
all right, that's one event, right? That's one event. So just because that happened, you have to go back to what didn't work. That's a question. So because they bombed the first one, of course, like it wasn't televised like this. Do you really think they're gonna bomb something else again today?
No, today they'll be more discreet about it.
They hit you differently. They
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
technically bomb
They
you,
won't bomb you.
But here's the thing, though. We are way advanced. The same way that we're marching now, the movement started here. It's basically all over Europe.
I like your point, but I think your point's still going to lead to the ultimate goal is to bring them on our side.
No, we begging them to.
We can't leave. We don't have the options to leave. They
Okay,
tried that.
but we're
Black
not-
people built
but
Liberia
we're not-
just because of
but we're
that.
not living though. We just creating our own wealth. We're creating our own way. They can still put us out streets if we take care of crime. What are they gonna put
You don't
us?
think we've been doing that? Do you think that we've come a long way? Because you got to understand, these people, they have a head start. 400 plus years head start. Now, I'm not going to say that's an excuse for us to, not continue to strive. But I'm not saying this what you're doing, but we can't discredit our people because these people had a head start for a long time. And we're trying to catch up. With us trying to catch up, we still have to deal with racism. We still have to deal with systematic oppression. We still have to deal with all of that. So it's going to take a minute. But as of now, what can we do? Like right now, what can we do?
Solve our own problem and stop looking at them to solve our problem. Like you mentioned, in the
Stop
60s,
killing black people. Black people stop killing black people. Is that what you're saying? What do you mean by solve our own problem?
solve our own problem basically is it comes down to two things. Again, it comes down to money and blood. Like, okay, let's say we overlook black on black violence, right? Let's say boom, we overlook that. But we're still spending trillions on an annual basis just for that. The only back in history when MLK boycotted in Montgomery, what happened? They called him for a sit down and they had some changes. Why? Hit him where it hurt. Money.
Even now, we having changes now, especially with police brutality. Yeah, they're starting already.
What change? Sentencing someone?
No, not only that. They're already passing laws.
No.
in Congress
It hasn't
right now.
passed yet. They're talking about it.
I think it will pass as long as we keep the pressure on them.
So can I put an input on
Go
here?
ahead.
So this actually was like what I was thinking about earlier, like the idea of by any means necessary versus like turning the other cheek and always being peaceful protest. Like it's a very, both have their positives, but and I want to go the not the peaceful protest because at the end of the day, like causing harm to somebody else for anything doesn't cause anybody joy. But it's where it's like like the crazy thing is when I was seeing the news the other day, when I saw the police precinct on fire, and this is gonna be kind of hot, it was crazy. It was like the first thing I'd seen in a minute that brought a smile. Because we've had all this news about the virus, about how more black people are dying from the virus. We've had all these news about Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and then George Floyd.
Right.
I couldn't even look at that. I couldn't even handle watching that for like 10 seconds. Like I watched the full video for the first time yesterday too. So but I do believe that we should always try to make it work with the peaceful protest, but because I do see some change in it, and even though there is going to be people who are always just going to try to do things for show, at the end of the day, we do have another pandemic with the virus, which is kind of real. You know what I'm saying? So people have to take that risk for themselves, even if they're like, oh, I'm just kind of doing this for the picture. They're still taking that risk. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the change from the protest is probably something that's going to be more slow, but the immediate change, like you talk about, is investing back in ourselves. Like that's something we definitely can do.
I definitely agree with that
So
too.
there's, I feel like there's good things in both what you guys are saying, but yeah, I feel like it's important to also like bring the by any means necessary thing, because we always, when I grew up, we really didn't get educated on Malcolm X at all, but we always got
And we
educated
did
on
get
Martin
educated
Luther
on
King.
him. I mean, MLK is dope or
He's
whatever.
great, but
But
even he, after
Malcolm
like,
X, come on.
I saw MLK's like one of his last interviews. He was talking about like, okay, you know, I'm happy that the civil rights movements, that some of the laws were passed, but you know, the real problem, the real thing that's going to create change is the economic disparity. You know, we still have a higher poverty even after all these laws are passed. So we need to attack that, because higher poverty, it means there's more miseducation. It results in higher crime rates. So people talk about, oh, you know, why is there more crime in the community? That's why higher
But
poverty.
again,
Exactly.
that's something that back to systemic, you know,
Racism.
oppression and racism, because now public schools are being funded for what? Property taxes. So you go to, you know, this is 20 miles, well, not even 20 miles, 20 yards from this light, this is a bad neighborhood, all the houses are run down. So the school that system in that specific zone are being funded by those run down houses. So it's kind of like, all right, you have two kids, same GPA, same everything, graduate top of the class. This went to a white school because, of course, his parents live in a nice neighborhood, and the other one went to a black school. Even the job, they won't pick them. Even if they pick both of them in the same job, this one have a head start. He has some type of value already. He has credit. He has some type of property value. He understands, like, you know, he has some type of wealth in his family. Versus this one, grandma probably still paying rent. She's not done. Parents probably like out there in the street, or either incarcerated, or maybe on crack. Who knows? And it's like those things where, yes, we keep looking and we keep asking for change, but what can we do for ourselves that we're not going to go back and beg other people to help us? It's kind of like create a solution. Stop begging. It's, you know, it's just real life stuff.
Yeah, for me, I think what you're talking about is definitely right. But the ultimate goal is it's not either or. We can do both. We can, just like you said, save ourselves or solve our own problems. But we don't need to let white people off the hook. They created this racism problem. They stole us from Africa. They brought us here. We built this country for free.
I agree.
So they have a big part to play in it.
I agree.
They have to play their part.
I'm going to disagree with you, because like at the end of the day, when we look at the history, we're talking about most of the Africans that have been brought to America or sold to were probably some of the people that were criminals as well. Most of them.
Well,
Like
well,
whenever there's like it wasn't like people that were
most of the slaves
most of the
were
slaves were
criminals.
actually the one that were
They were
probably
the strongest among all.
of course
Yeah.
because like whenever
They
we're
weren't
talking about
criminals.
them, well, you're saying that white people needs to solve the problem.
Yeah, the
So
problem created.
so you believe because if we're talking about racism is about all the races, right? So that means like that involves a lot of parties. It's not just about white people.
No, we're talking about racism related to
Black
us,
and white.
black and white.
Of
I'm not
course.
talking about Asians. I'm not talking about Latinos. I'm not talking about Indians. I'm
But-
talking about white people versus black.
Of course, because like we're talking about this right now because it's only in America. But whenever we talk about racism in China, we don't see it because it hasn't been filmed too.
Yeah, I mean,
Correct.
I'm not saying racism don't exist everywhere. It exists everywhere. I'm just
Of
saying
course.
white
In order for
versus
us
black.
to-
Even in Europe.
No, my thing
It's
is
the same
like
thing.
in order
It's
for
worse.
us, in order for
It's
us
worse here?
to actually
Yeah.
find the solution in racism, we need to find out about the roots. How did racism start?
We know.
Money. It was business. We already know. They came down. They got us. We work for free.
But I still keep on going. And then when you talk about like she said about like if a peaceful protest
Mhm.
was supposed to be a better idea. No, whenever they came to get us, they didn't use a peaceful way. They came with firearms.
But at first it was a deal. Then when
At
we,
first it was
when
deal,
we
yeah.
say
Exactly.
no,
When we
that's when they
resisted,
start
yeah.
trying to attack us.
Exactly.
But and that's also when another topic people don't like to talk about is religion. That's when they brought us Christianity. Hey, do this,
We're gonna
do
have to read
that.
that topic.
Yeah,
Do
that,
this,
that's
do
a,
that.
I want to ask you. So you said in order for racism to come to an end, it has to come from white people.
Yeah.
Right, and that's by white people educating themselves, or trying to understand us and learning. What was your?
Like I'll give you even one example right now.
Okay.
The Confederate flag. For many Southern here, they kind of reward history. For them, it's like Southern pride or something like that.
Yeah.
For us black people, that flag is the same thing as Jews seeing those swastikas and things like
Yeah,
that. Those
yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, because that Confederate flag was used to defend slave being slave. They fought against this country. Actually, they kind of, how you call it? They did treason. Actually, they fought against the U.S. to keep us enslaved. That's one main big problem right there. If they can see it like that, then I educate. And they're gonna show the kids the same way too. No, this flag represents Southern pride. No, it doesn't represent Southern pride. It represents people who fought to keep slaves.
But how do you expect a whole group of people to understand something they've never been through?
First of all, one thing that I'm loving right now is by taking down those things first. It sent a message out there. It was never even meant to be there. Those statues, those flags, I'm loving the way people are taking it down one by one. Because those kids, they didn't know anything about it. They saw those statues, they kind of, admire them or something like that. But now they kind of have to question themselves. Like, why are they taking those statues down? And now you're going to have to talk about it. It's going to have to start a
You're
conversation.
gonna have
It's
to
a
change a
reason for
lot
it.
of history books.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
going to be a generational fight.
Yeah.
We're not going to. Martin Luther King started this thing a long time ago. He had a dream and all that stuff. Even though some people say his dream came true, but for me, it's like halfway true.
I don't even think it can.
So do you believe that white people actually have the power to end racism because they have the white privileges?
No, they have the responsibility. They have the responsibility to end it. They don't have the power. I'm not giving them all the power. We got to do our part, but we don't need to leave them off the hook. I mean, they have the responsibility to end it because they started it versus us.
I mean, the problem is like I get it because like whenever we're talking about like we've been talking about it, we never mention black privileges. It's always about white privileges. They mostly exactly. The problem is like
I can't remember.
whenever we're talking about power, whenever
White
we're talking
people
about
have
power,
privilege. What did you say?
Black privilege.
Black
I
people
talk
have
about-
privilege.
What
black
is that?
people, do we have privileges?
What is it?
What is
I'm
it?
trying to learn.
That's what I'm trying to figure.
okay.
You say,
Okay, so
that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure because
so-
you say like white people, like whenever we talk about white people, we see the privilege. Whenever we talk about black people, we see power. So is it the reason that there's racism?
What you mean? We see
Because we never heard
power.
of-
Power in what sense?
Because why do you think that? Why would they kill something, destroy something that is weak?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
To not lose
Threatened.
control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have to.
People saying that us black people, we like to pull the race card. We like to play the victim. And for me, my biggest thing is playing the victim. There's a difference between being a victim and playing a victim. Playing a victim is telling me that something has never happened and I am playing that part. I can't play the victim if I am the victim. Now, I have seen black people pull the race card when it's inappropriate plenty of times. But what do you guys think about, should we get over what happened? Should we start not bringing that up every time?
Get over it? No, it's a factual thing. It happens. You can look it up. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest massacres in the whole world. It's a black race in a lot of countries. So no, we shouldn't forget it happened. We actually, in fact, we should talk about it more. Like, we should teach our kids that, yo, it wasn't just like 2 weeks worth of schoolwork that you learned and then like a whole semester for Holocaust. Nah, like, this needs to be the other way around.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we also need to teach our kids and the newer generation about those that actually made it out and did something great for themselves. Those that actually went back to get others. Like, those that kind of ended the crab in the barrel mentality. We should also talk about that. We can't just shine a light on something that was negative without a positive. Because it's a bunch of slaves or used to be slaves that actually did something great or did a lot of things, a lot of great things that we don't really mention. Because now, you know, people talk about slavery. Oh yeah, you know, we was beaten for 400 years. That's it. Nobody made it out. No, it's more to it than that.
Of course, Harriet Tubman is one of them. She's
But
going
they
to
turn
$20
it. It's
bill.
a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So we need to also, you know, bring both sides of the story. Say, okay, this what happened, but those people actually did that. And then we need to, of course, get back to the Tulsa Club and stuff. We need to come back to all of those things that, even though, yeah, they have a head start, but history shows that even with the head start, we beat them before they destroy us again.
I heard that point before that you mentioned about overcoming, forgetting about what happened. That's what they're trying to push. That's one of the agenda they're trying to push. That's why even this song, it's a good song. We shall overcome. I like that song. But no, not really. We can't forget. You know what 9/11 happened? What they say? Never forget 9/11. Never forget this. Never forget that. But why we do it? No. Exactly. Exactly. I'm completely against that. You know, it's history. It happened. We always need to bring it up so that way our kids can learn from it and we can move on.
I'd say it's important to keep bringing it up today because we talk about it like in the past, but there's stuff that's going on right now in today's society. In the year, people like to bring up, gosh, slavery was so long ago. It's 2020. Yeah, it's 2020, and we still have to come at a meeting and have these type of conversations.
Exactly.
So what does that say?
Like Kevin said,
We feel the need to have this conversation. What does that say?
we need to have those, you know, uncomfortable conversations with our white counterparts. Like,
I mean, nobody-
not only
like
that, even with our so-called successful black people, we need to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Because one thing I realize is the higher they go, the more quiet they become. It's like, nah, it's fine, you know, I made it up here, you can do it too. No, you up there for a quota to keep a number. You're not up there because they, like, come on, we need to talk about this stuff.
Keep it
An example. Because like if we say we have a problem, that means there's always a solution. There's never a problem without a solution. Like you said, I disagree with you, but I respect your opinion on the fact that you said that's why people should bring it. But because it's a two-party or multiple parties thing, I believe that everybody needs to come together, have a statement, an agreement on something based on whatever came before. If you say that you're talking about is because of money, listen, there's always a settle down. There's always a deal. Is it? Like, people have to communicate. Communication is the key. And then we don't need just one-time communication. We need a consistency communication. We need to keep that consistency. We need to keep it going. Because, like, once we stop, guess what? Something else will happen. We'll end up again being on the road, on the street, protesting. For what? For the same reason that we started. It's like teaching a child something that is not, you know, that is not going to listen to.
That's what I was saying. Vinny was also mentioning that we need to take over. We need to take control of ourselves. We need to realize our power. We do have power in this country, especially financial power. We do have a whole lot of. It's going to be so many components. It's not only one way. If once we handle, that's one of the main points. If we handle, we know our value, we know our power. Then we use that power to bring some of them, if not most of them, on our side. We don't need to bring all of them.
We will bring all of them because all those congressmen, people that's running for president, they're all backed by lobbyists.
Exactly.
All those people are major companies that make money off of black people. If we hit them, what should they go talk about when you're running for president? Hey, you gotta take care of them first.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, we broke.
Yeah.
So we need to do that. That's gonna help us get there.
Thank you guys for watching the first episode of Real Talk USA, and thank you to my panel for participating. Guys, please like, share, comment, subscribe. We want to hear your opinion. And if you are interested in participating, just DM us, hit us up, send us a message, and we'll love to have you.